All right, guys. So, as promised, have some hands, 2 hands, in fact, to report to you guys. Played a rather large pot, a rather large 2-5 pot here with pocket kings. So the under the gun player makes it 15. The under the gun plus 2 player makes it 30. Player on his left calls. As mentioned, pocket kings in the small blinds. Definitely 4-bet material here. Pocket kings out of position. Don't want this going multi-way, $30 a person. Definitely going to pump it up here. So I make it $130. The problem is that I actually did not realize that the first caller of the 3-bet, the player in middle position, didn't even realize that he was in there. Didn't realize he was in the hand. Somehow made a mistake and missed him, so my sizing is a little bit off here. Should be raising a little bit bigger. It's not too terrible, but don't like my sizing here, considering the number of players and considering that I'm out of position. And we are quite deep here, somewhere around 1,500 effective, maybe slightly less. Anyway, action folds back to the under the gun plus 1, plus 2 position. He makes the call, as does the player on his left, which now I realize that he's in the hand because I see that he calls $130. So 3 ways to a flop of king 6-5, 2 spades, 1 diamond. Seems like an above average flop. No ace. Always like to see a non-ace high board with pocket kings. So I decided to put out a C bet, and I bet $215. Both players make the call, so a already pretty sizable pot brewing here for a 2-5 game. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, which brings a second flush draw on board. Now the board is quite wet. 2 flush draws, multiple straight draws available, pair plus straight draws, pair plus flush draws, all sorts of things happening on this board. And to go along with that, I only have about a pot size bet left. I have somewhere around $950 left at this point. So I think as played, it doesn't really leave too much room for too much else other than just going with it. $950 in my stack. Need to charge all draws the maximum. Maybe still get good value from an ace-queen hand. If I bet anything less, I think I run the risk of offering too good of a price to any sort of drawing type hand. So I go ahead and jam. I stick the $950 all in there. The first player goes well into the tank, thinks for somewhere around a minute before making the fold. The second player doesn't need much time at all. He snap calls. So it's not looking too good now. The river comes, I believe, a 9. It doesn't really matter because I show my hand and he shows us pocket 6s. So he played it pretty well. He played it in a manner that was going to allow him to get the maximum. When he flats the flop on a flush draw and connected potential straight draw, flush draw on board, he played it well. Massively under-reps his hand and gets me to commit the full stack. Not sure whether I would be getting away from it if he does put in a raise on the flop, but lose the maximum here with an overpair versus the flop set. The real question, I guess, is whether or not I should be betting the flop. And I put the question to the old text group, poker texting group, and I got some pretty good feedback. It seems as though I don't need to be putting in a bet on the flop. Can try and do some pot control, try and keep my range a little bit wide because my value betting range on this flop is very small. So I think I can go into check call mode, and I think that would have saved me a bunch of money. And looking back, I certainly wish I had gone into check call mode on the flop. I was for sure going to lose something. I was for sure going to lose a decent sized pot here no matter what. If I had seen the caller in there pre-flop and sized more appropriately pre-flop, I think odds were that I was still going to get called pre-flop, considering how deep we are and just considering the player. Don't think it's a professional player. Not positive though, so can't really be sure about that. Can't really be sure whether he would have peeled pre-flop if I had sized better in my 4-bet sizing. So kind of a bummer to say the least. Stuck a bunch off the bat there. Pocket kings no good. Torched by pocket 6s. But let's move on. All right, so in his hand, under the gun, opens for 20. There's 2 calls. I look down at ace king in the small blind. 3-bet time, so I make it 120 to go. Only the first caller, the first field caller, makes the call. heads up to a flop of King 10-9 with 2 clubs. I decided to check it this time. No c-bet for me this time. I decided to check it. Somewhat similar of a situation, I think. Maybe not exactly the same, but one of those spots where my value range isn't that wide. So I decided to check it. My opponent does not decide to check it. My opponent decides to bet it. And it's no small bet. He bets $215. Not too much choice here. I make the call. We're off to a turn card, which is another king. I check it over to him again. He's not done betting. Still betting, still firing away. And he's only got about $550 or $600 at this point. Jams it all in there. Once again, no decision here. No real decision to be made, I don't think. I've under-repped my hand. We're beating all kings. We lose 2 straights. We lose 2 full houses, pocket 10s, pocket 9s. We lose to queen jack, but I guess we have equity against all those hands. And we beat all kings. So never folding here. I make the call. River is a pretty good river. River is an offsuit ace. He shows his hand, which turns out to be ace queen of clubs. So flopped nut flush draw plus gutter ball. We're able to hold on. We win a hand. We win a hand in this session, and it turns out to be a pretty good one. So that is some much needed relief. Happy to win that one. Good sized pot. And then this hand happens. Look down at pocket 8s. Playing 6-handed now. Raise it up to $20 from under the gun. The button and the small blind make the call. So 3 ways to a flop of 9-8-7 rainbow. Flop middle set here. Small blind checks. I put in a bet of $40. Both players make the call. So 3 ways to a turn card, which is a king of hearts, and it's the second heart. Small blind checks. Certainly don't want to give any free cards here, so I bet $95. The button folds, and the small blind puts in a raise. $275. The reason I sized down on the turn a little bit when I have a really strong holding and there's some draws available is because I picked up a little bit of a tell from the small blind. He did the whole head shake thing where he was pretty blatantly acting as if he was disgusted with the flop or frustrated with missing the flop. And it would have been really heroic of me if I could have just checked back on the turn and the action checks through on the turn, but no such luck. Couldn't help myself, just had to put in a bet, even though it was a very obvious tell. But now we're facing a $275 bet, and considering that there's a decent amount of money left to play for, I think beyond the $275 we'd probably have somewhere around $800 effective. So I think I'm getting a pretty decent price, and I expect to get very good implied odds on a paired board on the river. So not going anywhere. I make the call. We're off to a river card heads up. Unfortunately, the river does not improve me. River is an offsuit 6. My opponent bets $300. I give it the sigh, which is an actual sigh, not a false tell. Sigh, and I let it go. Let go of my pocket 8s, my flop set, and sure enough, he shows us Jack 10 offsuit. Flop the nuts. Frustrating. Can't turn the corner, cannot turn the corner. 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. So from there, progress. A little bit of progress was made. I started picking up some small to medium sized pots here. I put the button straddle on in one hand. Long story short, ended up making a full house with 7 deuce suited. There was a small raise to 25 pre-flop. Can't fold suited cards for a $25 raise when I've already got $10 in there. So sorry about that, but sorry not sorry. Full house with 7 deuce comes through. Ended up making the nut straight with queen jack off suit, 4 Broadway board, and my opponent puts in a decent sized bluff on the river. Take that one down as well. Then we make top 2 pair with Jack 10 on Jack 8-6, 10-4. We got a $55 bet in on the turn and a $165 bet on the river. That was a 3-way pot. Some momentum. We've picked up some momentum in the wee hours of the night / morning, early hours of the morning here. One more interesting hand to report. Once again, I put the button straddle on. There's an early position raise to 25. The cutoff calls, I call with queen 9 of diamonds. So we're going 3 ways to a flop here. 10-8-6, 1 diamond, double gutter. The initial raiser bet's $50 and we both make the call. Turn is an offsuit ace. This time the initial raiser bet's $80, which is very small. The player in the middle folds, and standard situation, once again, not going anywhere, not folding for this price. Double gutter, cannot fold. It's just way too cheap. I suppose we could possibly also bluff maybe a 9, turn our hand into a bluff on one of those rivers, potentially. Seems like it would be pretty connected to a lot of hands that we would continue on the flop with. So a couple different plans here. I make the call, and the good news is plan A comes in nicely. Offsuit jack on the river, and he doesn't stop betting. He bets $120. And even though we don't have the nuts here, it seems pretty unlikely that he should wind up having a king-queen hand in this spot. So happy to put in a raise. I raised up to $375. He doesn't think for too long, and he tosses in the call. So with him flat calling there, that means we scoop. And towards the end of the session, we somehow get all the way unstuck into the game for $3,000, out of the game for $3,504.